Siegfried Wagener Radio, read by Todd Rubik, Omegacube. It is July 19th, reading on Siegfried's property. So this is propaganda analysis by Siegfried Wagener. Friday, February 27th, 1942, from 7:15 at night to 7:30 Mountain Time. Good evening. Stefan Zweig had a few equals among the German writers after the last war, and his last name is Z-W-E-I-G. He was one of those rare literary specimen who did not lose his head when the world around him went to pieces. His books, while not so well known among the multitudes, sold millions all over the world. But most of his devoted readers were Austrian and German compatriots. With them, his name became a byword for deep penetration of the human soul, and with them he ranks side by side with Thomas Mann, the Nobel Prize winner. Stefan Zweig wrote some of the most powerful indictments of the mighty of this earth who are, in the past as well as today, drive uncounted millions of innocents to murder and slaughter to serve their own puny, mad egos. Puny but mad egos. Wow, that's a big... Stefan Zweig wrote some of the most powerful indictments of the mighty of this earth who in the past, as well as today, drive uncounted millions of innocents to murder and slaughter to serve their own puny but mad egos. He understood the lust for power in individuals which has so often changed the course of history and is doing it again today. And it is doing it again today, 2013, as we line up for World War III, or it already started. He understood the often false heroism, and the true cowardice of the so-called great personalities, and with his pen he could be as illuminating about them as an X-ray picture of the body. He was an analyst of the true causes and motives of people of extraordinary fate, which is, perhaps, the reason why his most popular books dealt with the Queen of Scots and with Marie Antoinette. Really? With the Queen of Scots. Had Stefan Zweig lived long enough, the world might have seen the first really great book about that mass of contradictions, the unholy conglomerate of treachery and abominable instincts which the world is calling by the name of Adolf Hitler. Zweig would have been capable of anything, capable of analyzing Hitler. Zweig would have been capable of analyzing Hitler in a grand manner, with unclouded, deeply penetrating vision and with an incisive, devastatingly honest pen. No wonder millions of Austrians and Germans loved him. No wonder that he became a post-war symbol for all that was fine and still good in the German literature, in a post-war Europe which tore itself to shred like a classical bird who ate the flesh of its own breasts. No wonder that Hitler hated Stefan Zweig, Hitler who cried like a baby when bullets passed him by at Königsplatz in Munich, Hitler who never understood a woman and who, though born of a mother, never understood the meaning of motherhood, where Stefan Zweig could only cry with a mother. Stefan Zweig could cry with a mother over her son killed in battle. Hitler sent millions of mothers' sons to certain death and turned around, ordering the remainder to create more sons out of wedlock. There was no more room for Stefan Zweig when Hitler came to power in Austria. He and his wife fled to Brazil. And there, the other day, Zweig wrote in a note, "I know it would take terrific strength to rebuild my life, and that strength I do not have. I know that feeling. Could there be any more devastating indictment of Hitler? Zweig and his wife signed a pact, and after written those tragic words, they both committed suicide by taking poison. That I will not do." President Vargas of Brazil ordered a state funeral, and there is where the story of Stefan Zweig ended, where propaganda began. Propaganda of the most hard-hitting kind which ever struck at the German listeners from the shores of the United States of America. Because of our American shortwave stations had a case which every not completely fossilized, Hitlerized German of even moderate intelligence would understand. They had a case which smashed through the heart of every German mother and father whose son was in the Hitler's army, and whoever borrowed a book by Stephen Zweig from a rental library. I think American shortwave stations avenged the martyr death of Stephen Zweig and his wife. They avenged it by driving the gnawing thought into the minds of German listeners, a thought that will make their lives flicker whenever in the future Hitler unlooses his empty, frustrated bombast on them. I think Stephen Zweig will rise with the millions of hands when the day comes to which Ambassador Litvinov from Russia referred to last night when he spoke about the next revolution in Germany. Litvinov, the most misunderstood man in France and England before the war, where nobody believed him when he preached that peace was indivisible, spoke of the disintegration in the German army. To this disintegration I referred to in my last broadcast as in innumerable references since September 1939 when I analyzed Stalin's offer to the German people in his latest order of the day. The German people are the German army, but the ones in the army have to do what the army says. So Russia says, they're not going to, everybody likes the German people, but nobody likes the Hitler regime. How this disintegration comes about and how it disseminates the morale of the German people and how it ultimately defeats Hitler, an American shortwave station in Cincinnati told the Germans by digging deep into the methods and results of Hitler's anti-Semitism. There's only one anti-Semitism in Germany, the official order and enfolded variety. There's only one anti-Semitism in Germany, the officially ordered and enforced variety. The German-speaking American knowing full well that every German listening in had to agree with him on that. And right there he caught even the most fanatical Nazi off guard because he explained, the German people are no longer anti-Semitic on their own notion or for one or the other private reason of their own, but simply because the Hitler government beats them up or sends them into concentration camps if they're not anti-Semitic. Having taken all personal initiative of anti-Semitism out, but of anti-Semitism, so the American broadcaster reasoned Hitler has driven everybody in Germany into opposition, particularly those stout-hearted Christians, Lutherans, and Catholics alike who never accepted the Hitler doctrine that he was the only God and Jesus Christ was only a Jew. Did you hear that? Having taken all personal initiative out of anti-Semitism, so the American broadcaster reasoned, Hitler has driven everybody in Germany into opposition, particularly those stout-hearted Christians, Lutherans, and Catholics alike, who never accepted the Hitler doctrine that he was the only... What? Hitler was the only God? Hitler was the only God, and that Jesus Christ was only a Jew. The American broadcast told the stories of refugee Jews in this country, and how they were helped and abided and aided by Christians in the manner of the pre-Civil War abolitionist Underground Railroad in America. How Christians stood up for them and how openly defied Nazi officials, and Christians went to concentration camps for exactly like the captain. So if the Christians help the Jews, they go to camps. If the Jews do nothing, they go to camps. In short, every German under Hitler's whip could hear of that defiant solidarity between true Christians and Jews that had sprung up because solidarity between true Christians and Jews that has sprung up because Hitler ordered anti-Semitism as the official religion of hate of the Nazi state. And every German listener was told how it came about and how it worked and how it would result in the ultimate destruction of National Socialism. Amen. That was the first-class propaganda on our part because it was based on the very facts which most German listeners could verify themselves. It showed the moral strength of the arguments for liberty and democracy and the infinite supremacy of the mind of Steven Ziewig over that of a mere Hitler. It was also in sharp contrast to the Japanese shortwave propaganda, which revealed that a monkey climbing up a tree is never sure that somebody might not come along and cut down that tree. By all the arguments of strategy and warfare, the Japs did achieve some pretty good victories in Hong Kong, Manila, and Singapore. Subsequently, a fellow would think they could be well satisfied in these victories and didn't need to brag over such small potatoes as the shelling of a California oil refinery by one of their submarines and the much disputed air raid alarm in Los Angeles, which we all were told was UFOs. But no, these pinpricks apparently had such high value for the Mikado propagandas that they amplified them out of all proportion and featured them in the newscast as major successes for Jap striking power. The reason for this odd procedure is apparent. One of our West Coast shortwave stations cutting in on Jap broadcasts and having the last word said, I quote, "Japan will find out that she cannot win this war," unquote. That is the reason. Beneath all their bravado on the shortwave, the Japs suffer from considerable anxiety about the ultimate outcome of this war. They are smart enough to realize that their early victories in southwestern Pacific are merely a beginning of a war in which the United Nations are growing stronger and stronger by the hours. Subsequently, the beginning of the like-minded one-world people. Subsequently, they, like the Nazi fascist propagandists, hope that the morale of the American people will not stand up under the strain, that it will break down before the American forces gain their full and decisive strength. Hence, they set great stock by subattacks and air raid alarms in Southern California, my home, praying and wishing all the time that the American public would get so irritated and hysterical about them as to slow down their war effort and possibly even quit the war altogether, because they can never win. Little known the Japs, that with such tactics they make us only more madder and more determined. But unfortunately, they sometimes get unwillingly help in our own country. After President Roosevelt specifically warned against the methods of Axis propaganda last Friday, I heard at least one Midwestern radio station headlining that a handful of 5-inch shells near Santa Barbara, that's my favorite place in the world. After President Roosevelt specifically warned against the methods of the Axis propaganda last Friday, I heard at least one Midwestern radio station headlining that a handful of 5-inch shells near Santa Barbara as, I quote, "the California disaster," unquote. So we're not supposed to use fear religion or fear politics or fear anything against our own people. It just makes us disillusioned and give up. And I know at least one of the Colorado community through which I passed that night on my way back to the MBS KFEL listening post in the high mountains, which was thrown into a near panic by such sensationalized reports. It has apparently not yet dawned on some people among us that that is exactly what the Japs are after with their mosquito pricks on the West Coast. Not the maddest among them figure that these attacks have any military value. It's like terrorism. But all of them are on their knees in frequent prayer that they will cause panic and hysteria among the American people, because all of them know that these attacks are part and parcel of Japan's war of propaganda. The man who goes around and tells his neighbors that our losses at Pearl Harbor were greater than are officially admitted is bad enough. But it seems worse when our accredited agencies of public information fall headlong for the tricks of Jap propaganda. And that is my analysis of propaganda for the present. The shortwave stations to which I have referred to are WLWO Cincinnati, Tokyo JVW, JLG4, KGI San Francisco. Good night. Now it's February 27th, 1942. And today is July 19th, 2013. As we sit on the verge of World War III, we'll be back with March 2nd tomorrow.